Thank you for joining me here today for part 2 of building Windows Phone applications with Silverlight. My name is Peter Torr. I'm a program manager on the Windows Phone application platform team. And when I was preparing this presentation back in Redmond, I had this great idea for an intro to kind of warm up the crowd. I was going to come here, do some yo-yo tricks, really impress you all. But I think I've been overdone by Sterling the other day. He was brilliant at his yo-yo tricks. So I'm going to pass on that, and I'm going to go straight into the slides. So first of all, a couple of points, fine print. This is not Silverlight 101. Some of you may have been here for Sean Oster's talk earlier today. If not, no worries. There's plenty of resources for you online, in books, etc. Or you could even watch Sean's talk on demand later on if you missed it. On the other end of the spectrum, if you'd like more deep architectural information, Istvan Cezeri is doing a talk tomorrow morning, and I highly encourage you to go to that if you want even more in-depth information. So what are the key things that I would like to kind of get across to you and for you to take out of this presentation? There are really 3 of them, because we love things to come in 3s. Firstly is that applications on the phone are built using pages. You've probably seen this in some of the keynote demos, in some of the other demos that have been done, is that we have this page-based navigational model in Windows Phone, and I'll show you about that. I'll show you that. The next one is that our UI is very clean and simple, and you've also seen this in the keynote, and if you went to the design talk yesterday, they would have talked about that. And so we have a very clean and simple UI. And finally, the third thing I'm going to talk about is how you can use services that we provide to really enhance your user experience. And this, sorry, technical issue, this is auto-forwarding. If anyone has one of these, please don't use it. This is auto-forwarding on me. So Mike in here was talking about part 1. He talked about input and output and so on. What I'm going to be talking about is these 3 things, the 3 key takeaways: application structure, controls and theming, and connected services. So let's start right off with application structure. And first of all, I want to just go with a little bit of history. Any one of you who's done Silverlight before kind of knows this diagram. A Silverlight application consists of a root visual, which is a user control. Typically, that user control contains content. And this is a great way of building applications on the web, of building widgets, of building rich media applications on the web. But the trouble with this is as you start to add more and more content, it appears to the user more and more like a web page, and they want to navigate it the same way they navigate web pages. But that doesn't work so well, because when they try and use the back button in the browser, the page gets torn down, your app gets torn down, and they're not very happy. Now, in Silverlight 3, they recognized this was a problem, and they solved it. They introduced the notion of a frame control, and a frame navigates between pages. And now, just like a normal web browser application, you have multiple pages in your application, and they work well with the browser button. So the user hits back, they see the previous page in your application, not the Bing search results page. So what did we do for Windows Phone? Well, we really liked the navigation system from Silverlight 3, but we realized there's really no reason for that user control in the middle. So our structure for a Windows Phone application is really simple. We have an application, it has a frame as its visual root, and inside that frame, we navigate between different pages. And you've all seen there's a hardware key on our phones. When the user hits the phone, they're very happy, because the app does exactly what they expect. So with that very brief introduction, I'm going to jump into some code here in Visual Studio, and I'm going to show you not just the basic page navigation that you would have seen if you knew Silverlight, but also some of the things that we've added in the phone to deal with orientation and application bar and so on. And quickly, raise your hand. How many people are familiar with the Silverlight 3 navigation system? Okay, it's probably about half of you. So some of this will be old hat to you. Everybody else, this will be new for you. So let's switch over here to the laptop. And very brief tour. Here I am in app.xaml. And as I mentioned, we have an application, and its root visual is set to be a phone application frame. And this is a class that's specific to the phone. It derives from the Silverlight 3 frame. So everything you know and love about the Silverlight 3 frame, you get in the phone application frame. And by default, we're setting it to go to our main page.xaml. So let's take a look at main page.xaml. In my sample application here, I have two pages, main page and details page. So if I look at main page.xaml, here it is in the designer. I have a couple of links here. And as anyone who's ever even written a web page before knows, the way you get from one page to another is through a hyperlink. So this is old hat for those of you who've done Silverlight 3 navigation before. But even if you haven't, if you know how to write a hyperlink in the web, in HTML, you know how to switch between pages in Silverlight. So this first link, which just says go to details page, is just going to navigate me, it's going to navigate me to detailspage.xaml. So when I click on this link, the phone's going to navigate to this page. But sometimes when you navigate between pages, you want to pass data. And again, anyone who's done Silverlight navigation, or even anyone who's done normal web navigation, knows that the way that you pass data between pages is with a query string. And it's no different here. If I want to go to details page and I want to pass in some data, I just use my good old question mark name equals value pair. And now I can pass data from this page to the next page. So let's take a look at that next page. Here it is. It's called details page, very stylishly designed page. And I have two things on this page. I have a text block, which has the name message, and the text query string goes here. I guess you know what comes next. And I have a button here that when I click it, it's going to go back. And so let's look at the code behind this. It's very, very simple. Hit F7. I have my normal constructor, calls initialize component. I have an onNavigated2 method. Now, when you're dealing with page-based systems like Silverlight 3 navigation or with the Windows Phone applications, typically you don't use the loaded handler. If you're used to normal Silverlight apps, you write code inside the loaded handler. Well, for navigation, your control or your page gets loaded once, and then as you navigate to and from that page, you get this called again on onNavigated2, and there's onNavigated_from, onNavigated2, onNavigated_from. And so you don't really use the loaded event, you use the navigated_to override instead. And so here, I'm going to call the base, and then I'm going to declare a message variable, a string variable, and I'm going to look at the navigation context, which is what I got from the previous page. I'm going to look inside the query string, just as you would on the web, and I'm going to try and get the value called message. And if that call succeeds, I'm going to set the message text to be that message, and it'll appear on the screen. And then my event handler for the back button is just going to call navigationservice.goback. Again, exactly the same way you would do it for a Silverlight 3 navigation application. So let's just go ahead and run this just to see how it works. Switch over to the device. Switch over to the device. I'm afraid I cannot get the device to work. If there's anyone can please come and try and make the projector work, that would be great. For the time being, I'll use the emulator instead. No worries, we have this awesome emulator. I'm going to switch to the emulator, hit Control F5. And now here we see the application. Excuse me. And if I hit Go to Details page without that query string, it goes to the Details page, and there's no data here. And I can use this button to go back, or, as I mentioned, you can use the hardware key to go back as well. So kind of for free, you get integration with the hardware back key. So let's go back. And now if I call the version that passed in the query string, we'll see here is some data. Here is the data that I passed from page 1 into page 2. So not a super complicated example, but this is just to let you know it's the same as Silverlight 3 navigation, and it's very similar to web navigation. So if you know how to do that, you know how to build a Windows Phone application. So let's do something a bit more interesting